What if I told you that your doubts, your fears, your worries could actually strengthen your relationship with God? I'm going to share with you what I mean by that up next. Have you ever felt like you're the only Christian struggling with doubt? Like you're the only Christian who will never measure up because you have these fears, these worries, this doubt. In today's show, I'm going to share with you 3 things you need to understand about doubt and how they can actually strengthen your relationship with God. My name is Tammy from the website Footprints of Inspiration and a Faithful God podcast, where I teach women how to let go of that need for perfection in their faith walk so they can show up perfectly imperfect and create a deep and meaningful relationship with God. So I'm going to share with you 3 things you've got to understand about doubt as a Christian. And we're going to dive right in. Number 1, doubt is not the opposite of fear. Did you catch that, my friend? Doubt is not the opposite of fear. When you have doubts, this is not the time to disconnect from God. This isn't the time to turn away, walk away, try to figure it out on your own. Try to get over and overcome that doubt on your own before going to God. You see, this is a perfect time for you to strengthen your faith. It's a perfect time for you to grow closer to God and learn how to rely on Him. Instead of looking at doubt as a bad thing, I want you to keep this one thing in mind. Doubt often shows that you're thinking about your faith. You're not ignoring it. It means you care enough to wrestle with the hard questions instead of settling for surface level beliefs. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. We've got to stop believing that. We've got to stop believing that we cannot have doubt when it comes to trusting God. Doubt can be a catalyst to spiritual growth, not a roadblock. Instead of viewing doubt as a dead end, like you can't go any further, see it as an opportunity to dig deeper into the truth of God. See it as an opportunity to grow closer to God. Number 2, acknowledge your doubt. Don't wait until you are doubt-free or worry-free before you go to the Lord. Take it to Him and ask for that. Acknowledge your doubt and ask God for that help. You know, one of my favorite stories is about a father. We can find it, in the book of Mark chapter 9. And it's about this father whose son was possessed by demons. And this father brings his son to Jesus. He is so distraught, so frightened. I think so many of us can relate to that, thinking about either whether it's a child or a family member that we just see so much turmoil go on. And all we want to do is we just bring it to Jesus, and we're so frustrated, so fed up, thinking that, you know what, nothing is ever going to change. And so this father takes his son to Jesus and he says, Jesus, if you can, will you cast out these demons from my son? And when we go into verse 22, here's what the father says to Jesus about his son. The spirit often throws him into a fire or into water to kill him. If you can do anything for him, please have pity on us and help us. And then in that very next verse, we see Jesus just like, what do you mean? What do you mean if you can? And he says, Jesus said to the Father, you said, if you can, all things are possible for him who believes. You see, we can believe in God. We can have, experience that all things are possible. We just take that to the Lord. And this is what I love about this story, is this father doesn't say, okay. He doesn't turn around, take his son back home, and wait to reapproach Jesus until he is no longer doubt-free or worry-free. Right then and there, we see in verse 24, the father says this. Immediately the father cried out, I do believe. Help me to believe more. I do believe, but help me to believe more. This is such a powerful prayer that you and I can pray each and every day when we're facing something where we have doubts, when we're facing something that we are worrying about or fretting over, just feeling very afraid over. We can take that to the Lord. We can acknowledge that to him and say, Lord, I do believe, but help me to believe more. Now, I'm about to share with you the third crucial thing you need to understand about overcoming doubt. But before I do, I want to invite you to hop on over to footprintsofinspiration.com/grow closer and grab my free cheat sheet, 7 no fluff ways to grow closer to God. Listen, I know you're busy. I know you've got a lot on your plate and you have every intention of spending time with God. But then what happens? We get to the end of our day, pour ourselves into bed, and we're like, oh, I totally forgot to spend time with God again. I totally forgot to say a prayer or read the Bible. I got distracted and went off in this other direction and had to do something else. And so we just don't make that time or feel like we don't have that time for God. I've got you, my friend, in this 7 no fluff ways cheat sheet. These are going to be the ways that you can grow closer to God, even in the midst of even your busiest seasons. So hop on over, grab that free cheat sheet at footprintsofinspiration.com/grow closer. That's footprintsofinspiration.com/grow closer. And of course, I'm going to put the link for it in the show notes below. Number 3, here's the thing, my friend. As I mentioned before, doubt is not the opposite of faith, but doubt activates our faith. Did you catch that? Doubt isn't the opposite of faith. Doubt actually activates our faith. What do I mean by that? We read in Ephesians chapter 6 about the armor of God. I'm sure that's a Bible verse or a passage you've read many, many times. But I want you to take a look at one particular verse with fresh new eyes today. And in verse 16, it says, "Take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one." What do we know about Satan? He's the one that plants all that doubt, that self-doubt, that fear, that worry in our brains. He's the one that gets those spiraling emotions going, right? We start to spiral downhill with all the self-doubt, all the worry, all the fear, all of those things. And so when we take up the shield of faith, hold that shield up, I think so often, many women feel like this is when we do this, we're doing it on our own. We're going to hold up that shield of faith and we're going to do it all on our own. No, what this means is this is the armor of God, the very power of God. And as we take up the shield of faith, right? Number 1, that tells us, very important, that there's an action we must take. There's an action we must take. That verse says, take up the shield of faith. It doesn't say sit on the sidelines and wait for God to do all the work. It says take up that shield of faith. And when we hold up that shield of faith, right, that positions us under the defenses of God. The very power of God who parted the Red Sea. The very power of God who raised Jesus from the dead. The very power of God who raised Lazarus, from the dead. That's the very power that you and I have within us. And when we take up that shield of faith and we position ourselves under the very power of God, the defenses of God, that's when we can learn to trust Him more fully. But we've got to do the work too, my friend, right? When we are walking with God, it doesn't mean we sit on the sidelines and do absolutely nothing. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know I say this all the time because it's so true. We tend to fall back and think that we if we're following God, it shouldn't be this hard. No, all throughout the Bible, we see that there is an action. We actually come into partnership with Jesus, and there are things that we have to do. We have to actively participate in our faith. You do not have to fight doubt on your own. Stand under the defenses of our God. In Psalm chapter 91, verse 4, here's what it says. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. Now, it's important to note in this Bible verse, what does rampart mean? Simply put, it means a defensive wall, to fortify or surround. Do you see how powerful that word rampart is in that particular verse? It means God will fortify us. It means He will surround us. It means that He will protect us when we lift up that shield of faith and choose to come under the defenses of God. When we say to God, Lord, I believe, but help me to believe more. Lord, I have all these fears, these worries, but I'm going to choose to trust you. Remember, trusting God isn't a feeling, it's a choice. And there are some days you're going to have to make that choice over and over and over again. There are some days the self-doubt is going to be so heavy on you that you're going to have to go to God again and again and say, Lord, I believe, but help me believe more. There are days where you're going to have to lift up that shield of faith over and over and over again. You've got to get persistent and consistent in your pursuit of God. You've got to get consistent and persistent in active participation with our Father. If you want to overcome those doubts, we don't do it on our own. We don't turn away and wait for all those doubts to be gone before we go to God. We go to God and say, Lord, I believe you. I know you can do this. My head knows this, but my heart, I'm still scared. I'm still scared, right? I know you can do it. I'm still afraid. I still have this doubt. But help me to believe more. Help me with my doubt, Lord. Help me to put up the shield of faith, because I know that you protect me, that you are my covering. You are my fortified wall that surrounds me. Remind me of that, Lord. You see, he's right there. He wants to help us through this. He's right there, ready to help us overcome our doubt. He's right there, ready to just give us the strength and the wisdom and the provision, provide everything that we need. All we got to do is bring it to him. So again, I just want to reiterate those three things. Number one, faith is not the opposite of doubt. Number two, acknowledge your faith. Your doubt. Acknowledge your doubt, just like that father did when he went to Jesus. Go into, if you haven't read that story yet, go to Mark chapter 9 and read that story. It's such a powerful story. And I love that this man, again, that he didn't turn away and wait till his doubt was gone. He took that doubt to Jesus. And that's what we're to do as well. And number three, lift up that shield of faith so that you are under the defensive of our almighty, powerful God. Listen, my friend, doubt doesn't disqualify you from God's presence. It's an invitation to lean in closer. I'm going to repeat that because that one is so incredibly powerful. Doubt doesn't disqualify you from God's presence. It's an invitation to lean in closer. And as you do these things, as you lean in closer, it's going to strengthen your relationship with God. As you lean in closer, this is what's going to help you trust God more and more. It's like stretching that faith muscle, right? We've got to stretch that faith muscle to strengthen it. And the more you lean into God, the more it strengthens your relationship and the more it strengthens your faith in him. Now listen, I've got a 4-part series on the channel about what faith in God really looks like. I'm going to put that in the links for you below and also up on the screen now so you can hop on over and listen to that. That is a great and powerful series about what faith in God really looks like. And then my friend, I hope this blessed you today. I want to hear from you. Drop in the comments below and tell me that you are no longer going to allow doubt to overcome you. That you are no longer going to allow doubt to keep you from a relationship with God. I want to hear from you. Drop it in the comments below, my friend. And then listen, I will meet you back here in the next video.